There's a line in parenting, and I guess it's used in life. It says you got to pick and choose your battles. Well, this is where I draw the line. These are the last formulas you're going to need to see as far as the trig identities and stuff. So I just want to point a few things out here, hopefully. I want to kind of point out that there's really nothing new here, in that if you look at sine 2 theta, or 2u, this is the same as sine a plus b, where a and b are equal. And the same goes for the cosine 2u would be the sine u plus b. And then what they do too is they bust out a little Pythagorean identity action. So in other words, if sine squared is equal to 1 minus cosine squared, you can plug that in, and vice versa. So there's really, and then the tangent to u is the same as tan a plus b, except they're the same thing. So anyway, then the sine squared formula comes out of this one here. What you do is you use that doggy, and you solve for sine squared or cosine squared and whatnot. So it kind of goes, this stuff is from before, then you solve for the other variable and you have it there. Then if you take that and solve it around and then replace 2u with u, you can get these formulas. So they're just sort of one builds right off the other. And then there's this little CYA kind of a thing going down here that you have to do this move sometimes, and we'll discuss that. If u is in one quadrant, then u over 2 is most likely going to be in a different quadrant. If they're in the first quadrant to begin with, well then, half of, some number is going to be still in the first quadrant. But any other quadrant, it's going to happen that way. So this is just sort of an overview as what section 5.5 has to offer. And then we'll do some problems. For my first thing, I would do question number 7. All right, so question number 7, you have this, it says sine 2x minus sine x equals 0. And if you look at that, you say, okay, well, I should be able to do something with that. But you have sine 2x. We have sine 2x there, and we got sine x there. So, and sort of in the immortal words of MC Hammer, we got to break it down, and so that we're dealing with everything's in terms of x, so that we can bust out our inverse functions. So poof, I just busted out one of the formulas du jour, and you just rewrite sine 2x and 2 sine x cos x, and then it's game on. And then this is ZPP. As you know me. So which greatest common factor? Well, it'll be sine x. And then now we have 2 cos x minus 1 is equal to 0. So we get sine x is equal to 0. And cos x is equal to 1/2. And so on the unit circle, here we get x is equal to 0. And pi, and kind of go back to the unit circle thing, sine is 0 here and here, and then the cosine is equal to 1/2. Well, on the unit circle, that's going to be like those two doggies, right? The adjacent side is 1/2, and so that's going to be pi over 3 comma 5 pi over 3. All right. So for my next selection, looking at problem 27, it just says reduce the power down to something you can deal with, or down to first power. All right. Anyway, so cosine to the 4th, cosine squared times cosine squared. Now each of those cosine squareds we get from this doggy right here. So then we get, so just repeating it twice, we get that. Then I'll FOIL it out. Foiling it out, we get that, and then once again we got to use that formula one more time. But we could regroup these first guys here because they're fair game, but he's not, because he's still in second power. So the first two terms are just brought over there. The second one, we've got to remember the 1/4, and then basically what you're saying is 2u is like your new u, or So double that is 4u. Anyways, this is an okay answer. You know, it's a factors of taste and a WWBD. So here's Bob's answer. And it may look a little funky, but if you think about it, the greatest common factor is going to be 1/8, because that's where that term comes from. So this final term would be here, and then this would really be 1/8, and then this would be 1/4, so that's 3/8, and that's where that comes from. And then here, because 8 is your denominator, 2 divided by 4 here should be 1/2. As we see, it's 4 divided by 8, so everything is good.